Now, I want to show you the very latest research that I've been doing, which I think is very amazing and confirmatory, and and shed some light on what's happening right now in America. So to begin with, in the last couple of years, 2016, 2017, Dr. Kenneth Kavanaugh and Michael Dilbeck published a series of 4 papers, and it was researched on the effects of the meditating halls in MIU, Marshall International University in Fairfield, Iowa. So this is the men's hall. That's what it looks like. We're all sitting there meditating. I'm way off to the right out of the picture. And this is the ladies' dome. Oprah doesn't usually meditate with us, but this is the only picture I could find of what happened in the ladies' dome. Got it off the internet, so there it is. And so this is the study. This is the baseline period, 2003 to 2007. Our square root of 1% of the U.S. population is at this time was 1,725 meditators. So our prediction is we need a group at that size or bigger to have an influence on the U.S. as a whole. And you could see that it was way lower in 2003, 2006. It starts ramping up between 2006, 2007. And then it remains at or nearby the threshold during the experimental period, which is 2007 to 2011. So the question is, what happened in the quality of life in the United States during the experimental period compared to the baseline period? And so what Kavanaugh and Dilbeck did was study a number of different variables. This is homicides. You see the fluctuation. This is monthly data, so you see these big seasonal fluctuations. Homicides are highest in hot weather, and this is generally true of violent crime, lower in cold weather. So these are Julys, and these are January, February. But underneath that, there are these trends, and the trend was slightly increasing trend in homicides during the baseline period, but during the experimental period, they started decreasing. And the same thing was true for motor vehicle fatalities, drug-related deaths, that people dying from overdose of drugs, violent crime decreasing, fatalities due to other accidents, and infant mortality, completely different kinds of variables. So my question was, well, okay, that was some years ago. And since then, what happened was the size of the group decreased. It increased here during the experimental period because there, a very rich person actually funded the research. And then that funding ran out and the size of the group decreased. And so what happened? Would the effects be reversed? We saw that during the experimental period, things got better. Would it all be reversed if you turn down the coherence, turn the knob down, so to speak? And so this is annual data showing the size of the group, going up very quickly here, being high, and then dropping down here again. So that's our independent variable. And so here's looking at one variable, murder rate. So as we saw before, it was increasing during the experimental period, started decreasing. And what we see here is that when the numbers dropped, it just turned around. And so here we see all these different variables showed the same pattern. As soon as the size of the coherence grading group reached the threshold, like predicted for the US, you saw a uniform reduction in all of these different variables: murder, rape, assaults, robbery, infant mortality, drug deaths, vehicle fatalities, and children deaths by injuries. Then when the size of the group dropped down, then it all began to turn around again, particularly when there was a very rapid decline in the size of the group. You saw a very rapid turnaround in the negative indicators, all these negative trends going back up again. And this is the overall average. The red line is the average of all variables. And if you plot them so that a reduction in crime is actually increase in quality of life, so we're plotting this as an increase in quality of life, it looks like a lead-lag relationship for about 2 years. the size of the coherence creating group is increasing. And here you see about 2 years later that the quality of life improves. But actually, what's really happening, I think, is more it's a phase transition. You know, we had this phase transition idea, and it wasn't, nothing happened on the quality of life until the size of the group, the blue line, reached our predicted threshold at the dotted line here, and then things started to change. And then when it started decreasing, it was sort of slow to change until there was a rapid decrease. So this whole region here, theoretically, we don't have any clear predictions about how the effect would decay. It would depend on a lot of things, like how long was the coherence creating group there? How long was the population saturated with coherence? You know, there would be like, there would be policy changes, changes in law, which could change things, and those may degrade over time. Should I say that Obama was elected during this period and Trump was elected during this period? So anyway, so what is the practical, you know, value of this? Is it really significant, or is it just some sort of statistically significant thing? Does it have any practical significance? So here I did a linear forecast analysis. The dotted line is the forecast based on the baseline period. So you can see the dotted line is right upon the dark line, which is the actual number of drug-induced deaths. They're going up year by year in a linear way. And then forecasting forward, if they just kept going, this was what they would be if that baseline period had continued. But what you see is that it dropped off, and then it dropped off more. How much was that drop? It was an estimated over these two experimental post periods together, 79,000, almost 80,000 fewer drug deaths they were averted. And you can see at the end here of the post period I have here that the actual number of drug deaths has returned to what would be predicted from the baseline. So it sort of lost all of the advantage. And so this is another variable, aggravated assault. This is a case where there was no linear relationship in the change during the baseline period. So it's simply what's predicted going forward is just the average of what was happening during this period. And on average, there were almost 1 million fewer aggravated assaults, and similarly, almost 500,000 fewer robberies, and over 53,000 fewer rapes, and 158,000 plus fewer children and adolescents dying from injuries, and almost 96,000 fewer vehicle fatalities. Infant mortality was down by almost 281,000. There were 28,000 fewer murders. So this is the score sheet here of the reductions from the forecast value. How much was it reduced from what would have happened if the baseline had have continued? And over here, reductions per CITHA, I just divided these numbers of reductions here by the number of people in the group. So they spent their time well. For each guy or woman meditating in the group, there were 511 fewer assaults, 261 fewer robberies, 152 fewer infant mortalities, 85 fewer deaths, children deaths, 52 fewer motor vehicle fatalities, 43 fewer drug deaths, 29 fewer rapes, and 15 fewer murders. So what will future generations think of us if we ignore this opportunity